So for more on the story now, we're joined by reporter Kailihle Khumalo. Kaya, various strategic objectives being highlighted by the president. One such looking at that Africa Free Trade Agreement, strengthening peace and development on the continent, solidifying relationships with the United Nations, as well as South Africa's positioning in that non-permanent seat of the Security Council. Let's talk a little bit about the feasibility as well as the application of some of those objectives.
Well, certainly, Faith, it is a very monumental task for Pretoria, as we know that come February, South Africa will officially assume that all-important chairship of the African Union. So the President really highlighted some of the very key challenges facing the continent. So the issue of peace and security in Africa has always been a massive issue. So the theme for this year will be around silencing the gun. So oftentimes people say, well, how feasible is that? We know that in Africa you have some very intractable conflicts. So when you look at the Libyan situation, for example, it's a conflict that for some time has been raging, but also a very concerning issue is that you have seen also external actors coming in as well. But the President today really sees the opportunity to allay the fears in the continent to the heads of mission that South Africa will attend to one of these pressing issues. But of course, the issue of South Sudan as well. Faith, South Africa has always been involved there unilaterally and multilaterally in trying to make sure that a solution is found as well. One of the youngest countries in Africa, in fact. So by all accounts, this is a very historic meeting. All the heads of mission within the African continent are here. So a lot of them, they're really optimistic that they will really just be rallying behind the President, who said it's not just going to be his sole responsibility, but South African missions in our continent will have a very massive responsibility in making sure that Pretoria is able to fulfill all the goals. But Faith, perhaps to try and take this further, we're joined by the Minister's spokesperson here, Mr. Lunga Ngqengelele. So, sir, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Let's just look at the overriding goal. Why are these heads of mission meeting today?
Thank you very much, Kai. The meeting was convened in order for the President to speak to the mission heads of countries that are accredited in Africa, of course, about our chairship of the African Union, as you've correctly said, that we will be assuming it early in Feb. So the President is wanted to just make sure that all ambassadors and heads of missions will be speaking from the same tune in terms of the key objectives that South Africa has set itself up, and make sure that they are able to convey the message to the countries that they represent South Africa in.
And just the issues of the strategic objectives of Pretoria, as you'll be having such a very big responsibility, the issue of infrastructure development in Africa, making sure that the continental free trade area is fulfilled, all the goals that are envisioned there. So what's going to be South Africa's role in championing all of that?
Of course, the good thing about chairing the African Union is the fact that you will be working not just with individual countries in Africa, but with the regional bodies as well. So South Africa will be making sure that all of the African countries are speaking in one voice and also understand the priorities as determined by our theme of this year, in terms of making sure that the progress is made in terms of developing infrastructure, in terms of making sure that we use the young population that we have in terms of skills and so on. So those are the things that the South Africa will be making sure that all countries understand as priorities.
But I would imagine, sir, before I let you go, it's going to be a very big task, given the fact that from time to time in South Africa, we do see the intermittent violence targeting mainly the African migrants. And these are ambassadors who are mainly representing South Africa in different African countries. These are ambassadors from time to time who face a lot of backlash, where there's always a sentiment of anti-African migrant in South Africa. So surely, being a chair of the AU, that's going to be a big job.
Of course, it's an issue that even the minister this morning touched on. It's a matter of serious concern to South Africa, and we are doing everything in our ability to deal with this issue. You would know, for instance, that the president had sent envoys in a number of countries in Africa to explain what is happening. But in the main, as Minister Pandor said, we need to involve our communities more so that we don't have the repeat of such issues. And we hope the platform will also provide us with an opportunity to be able to explain better to African countries that if we have development in all of the countries, we would have less of these challenges, because we have South Africa at the moment has got quite a number of people that are coming because of probably of economic conditions they find in their countries. So the development of Africa will assist us in terms of making sure that we don't have the repeat of this in South Africa.
All right, sir. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Mr. Lunga Ngqengelele there, Minister Naledi Pandor, spokesperson, but also, more importantly, Faith, a number of issues really came out during the presidential address. The issue of also empowering women in Africa, making sure that the continent really develops a plan in terms of making sure that we deal with femicide cases. The president also alluded to that, but also, more importantly, the issue, for example, of making sure that the young people also are given opportunities, given the impatience that we see in the continent. But undoubtedly, this is a very unprecedented occasion as the head of state and also the commander-in-chief is addressing the heads of mission accredited in the continent.
Kylie Kumalo, we're going to leave it there, giving us the latest from the SA Heads of Mission Conference in Pretoria.